So you can, if you want, you can skip ahead to that part of the video. But I'm going to go ahead and just start up here with Kharkov and say that there is still fighting over the village of Ternova, and it seems like there is an increased amount of artillery going back and forth, and there's skirmishing all along the line of contact up here. But other than that, there is no information other than the status quo, and it seems like both sides are pretty much just confirming the status quo for the information. It doesn't seem like any villages are changing hands or anything like that. And then there's still no word of this. The soldiers on the opposite side of the Seversky Donets on the other side of this reservoir here are still there as far as we can tell. So moving on down the line to Liman, and this is where this has been the point that has had like the most going on in the last few days, and it seems like, or really like in the last 2 days, and it seems like Liman has nearly fallen. The vast majority of the town is under Russian control, and the train station and the train yard seems to be the only place where the Ukrainians are hanging on and they're putting up a defense. And I'll go ahead and show you guys. This is where I got this information. This is a map that's put out daily by Rybar News, and this is north of Kharkov. This is where they were saying about the fighting that's still going on in Chernova. And then here is the Liman area, and this is their view of what's going on. It seems like they're claiming there was heavy fighting here yesterday around these lakes, and apparently Russian media seems to think the Russian troops managed to push the Ukrainians back from there, and there's clashes on the outskirts of this small town here. And then both the north and southern parts of Liman have been cut, and then the northeast part is basically occupied by the Russians. And the only portion here on this map is the train station, which is holding here. So I do want to say that, like, at this point, like, this road here doesn't really matter, because it seems like the main route of retreat for Ukrainian forces is through to this small village, where they could very well possibly have some pontoon bridges set up to get their heavy equipment across. If not, Ukrainians can still get across here. It's not a problem, you could probably swim or create like a smaller bridge for like walking. You could do something like that fairly quickly, but you would have to abandon most of your heavy equipment on the other side, which is probably already happening. There's probably a great amount of equipment that's been left behind in other parts of the town, and will probably be left behind here. But my guess is this is a delaying action. The Ukrainians are holding on to the train yard here in order to allow for the bulk of their forces to escape here, and at which point they'll probably quickly try to escape as well, to get to the other side of the river. Like I was saying yesterday, once this pocket falls, which is very likely to fall, these troops will probably just go ahead and retreat, and a new defensive line will likely be set up in this forested area around through here, outside of Slovyansk. So, quick thing about this situation: once it is captured, you do have a very powerful Russian force here in Liman that has a big success under its belt. Probably has taken some casualties, but likely still has a lot of power left behind it. So you're going to see something like this whole side of the river being occupied by the Russians, and based on the strength of the Ukrainian positions directly on the other side of the river, which I'll go ahead and show you real quick. It seems like the defense of Slovyansk from the north is at least centered around this village here and the Chalk Mountains, which provide a very good vantage point all along through here. The Ukrainians have a very good vantage point where they could see everything going on. You could see these mountains actually from Liman, and some of the videos that were coming out, if you guys want to go back and look at them, of the shelling. Let's actually see if we can see one right now. Jesus. What the hell is wrong with this thing? This is not the right one. I'm going to go to the other one. This is 𝕀𝕞𝕡𝕠𝕣𝕥 here, and these are the chalk mountains you can actually see in the background. And apparently, Ukrainian artillery is operating from this area as well. You can see there, chalk mountain. So it's pretty good vantage point, and it's not likely that the Russians will have any success trying to cross the river here into Sloviansk, at least in the beginning of the siege of Sloviansk. So once they capture this area here, it's likely that they're going to take that offensive power they got, finish cleaning up the forests here, and try and cross the Seversky Donets River again. And whether they do this to the east or to the west of Seversk will tell us a lot about like where the new lines here are going to form up, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But there's very likely to be another pontoon bridging attempt, if not several more attempts to get across the river here. They're not gonna stop. So that's the situation there. There's rumors. I've heard rumors from both sides, and from the Ukrainian side, there's claims, which I don't have photos or videos or evidence of it. There's just claims that the Ukrainians have actually not retreated from Lysychansk Severodonetsk, but they've reinforced it with 2 battalions of territorial defense units with some heavy equipment. Which I have to say, if that's true, I think it's foolish. It seems like the fate of this area of the map is kind of sealed, and it just seems to me like a waste of good militia troops. Now, I mean, obviously the more important soldiers are the Ukrainian regulars, and by important I mean like the more effective soldiers, like the more fighting effective soldiers. And I'm not going to claim that this is an attempt to swap them out, but it might be. They might be putting territorial defense units in to hold the line in order for the better units to escape, which, tough decisions have to be made in war like this. But I have heard some rumors, coming from the Russian side. The Russians are saying that there's already a flood of people exiting this area on foot, not a lot of heavy equipment. It seems like some troops from who knows what units are already moving out of the pocket here, and maybe some civilians, maybe other kinds of people, I don't know. But there's kind of like weird rumor claims on both sides about movement in both directions. But I do have to say that I have seen some troubling footage of Ukrainian soldiers, and this is floating around on the internet. I'm not going to show it, but if you want to go see it, you can. You can find them on like Telegram, on like Rybar and like Slava and places like that. You're not going to find them on Ukrainian channels because they're very much going against the grain here. But basically, they're videos of Ukrainian units that are allegedly refusing to fight, trying to make an appeal to Zelensky, refusing to fight, saying that they're being sent on suicidal missions, or they're basically supplied with no equipment, no heavy equipment, no artillery, no air support, things like that. And they're almost like strike videos. And I'm saying allegedly because I don't speak Ukrainian, and that's obviously what they're speaking in the videos, and I'm going off of what the captions below the videos say. And they're saying that, they're refusing to fight, which, I'm just like making a basic assumption. If someone wants to go and find these videos and watch them and, that speaks Ukrainian, that can confirm or deny what they're saying, that would be great. But, those videos allegedly exist, and it kind of matches up with the situation that that Zelensky's been saying that losses are heavy. He said in Davos the other day that they're outnumbered in equipment at about 20-1 ratio, and these are definitely developments that would upset the average soldier on the front lines. So just be aware of that. If we get any kind of information on that, I'll be sure to update you guys. So I've made some changes to the map here. So it turns out that the Russians do claim, and the Ukrainians as well claim that 𝕀𝕞𝕡𝕠𝕣𝕥𝕒 has been captured by the Russians, but there's kind of a counterclaim here. So the Russians are saying that they've 100% cut the road and occupy parts of it. Obviously, 𝕀𝕞𝕡𝕠𝕣𝕥 is to the north of the road, and the Ukrainians have posted some information here to dispute that fact. And this was 4 hours ago, so I'm not going to say whether or not something happened, like they got pushed out of 𝕀𝕞𝕡𝕠𝕥, but I am going to say that if they're basing this information off of this photo right here, if they're saying that this is evidence that the road is open, then this is false information, because this is a screenshot from a video that was taken about 5 days ago, 4 or 5 days ago. So you guys are aware of that. This video does not match up with that particular situation, but that's not to say that Ukraine didn't push and recapture 𝕀𝕞𝕡𝕠𝕥 in the last few hours. I do not know. I'm just saying that this image does not match up. So this could just be, this happens all the time on the internet. Like, people will match up images that don't belong and stuff like that. But here's the Ukrainian information that says they have reached these villages here. So I've marked that on the map. So we still have the Russians advancing and creating a worse and worse situation. Both sides have said it's getting worse for the Ukrainians here by the hour. So moving on down, the Russians captured this village here. So they are continuing to advance, and this comes from this Canadian journalist Neil Hauer, which I have to say is very surprising, because there's been very, very, very few journalists that have been allowed close to the front on the Ukrainian side. There's even, basically they're not even allowed in the Donbass. So, I've really only seen like 2 or 3 circumstances, and one of them was a CNN video where they visited 𝕀𝕞𝕡𝕠𝕥 North, where the bridge crossing was, and then now this guy that's apparently in the Bakhmut area somewhere that's been reporting. It's what seems to be fairly accurately on lost territory on the Ukrainian side. So the Russians have captured that territory, and it seems very apparent that in this area of the map here, the Russians basically pulled a flanking maneuver that this whole territory here, plus, let's see here, let's get rid of this and I'll show you guys. Plus this territory, and I believe this is the village, right? And they're moving on this village here, right here. And I have an image of the map here, actually, which this says that this is already captured by the Russians. So it very well might be, but basically, rather than suffer a huge defeat in battle, because there's a strong Ukrainian line sitting right here, they ended up getting attacked from 2 different sides, from the front, and then they had the Wagner mercenaries coming from behind that were threatening to roll up basically the entire front line. And this would have caused some very, very heavy casualties, and would have been, basically impossible to defend against. Like trenches, they're good for facing off against people coming from the direction that they're facing. Like when you have people coming through the trenches from the side, they're just a death tunnel. They're not giving you cover very good cover anymore, especially when you're getting fired at from the other direction. So rather than be faced with this situation, the Ukrainians just decided to retreat out of these positions and head back to Bakhmut, where there's likely going to be a new defensive line set up right here. And now what's going on is the Russians are assaulting this position right here. And as far as we know, there's a small Ukrainian defense set up around this power station as well. But these are likely, they're likely just defending here to hold back the Russians for enough time for the rest of the forces to retreat, where they could also retreat, because the Russian offensive, not only is it coming from this direction and this direction, but it's also going to be coming from this way, and it's going to continue expanding up through here. So you're probably looking at a situation where at the beginning of next week, I hate how you can't click around. The Russians are likely going to control most of this area here by the beginning of next week, and where you'll see like a new front line forming down through here. Because, like I said, they can keep rolling up the lines here. They can come at them from an angle where they can't really defend against until they get to Izaysevi and this whole conglomerations of towns leading up to Bakhmut, where they can actually fortify and build a defensive line. So this is the best place to defend here, and the Ukrainians, while they didn't get a bad, costly defeat in battle, they did trade. They basically traded territory for time. So they're giving up this territory to the Russians so they can set up a new defensive line. And we're likely to see a continuation of these Russian forces moving towards Seversk, and like I said, likely a couple more crossing attempts in the next week to try and close off this area in this pocket. So bad situation going on here. It's going to continue to get worse. Heavy shelling all over the line in many different places, as you can see here. If you want to pause this and read this, this is Ukrainian information right here. So a lot of Russian airstrikes. There's a lot of Russian artillery strikes all up and down the front line. The Russians are hitting logistics centers in the back of the line. They're shelling on this line as well, on the Zaporizhia line, and it does seem like there's some truth to the fact that there's an offensive buildup in this area. The occupied Zaporizhia region has of course, like a Russian appointed governor now, and he's made some statements about how this territory and hopefully the city of Zaporizhia will eventually be part of Russia. So, Russia's current war goals are to demilitarize Ukraine, first of all. So that could basically be summed up to, the destruction of the Ukrainian military. Official recognition of Crimea, and a release of the states of Lugansk and Donbass, or Donetsk, so they could, a release of those states from Ukrainian official, international claims. Like, they want Ukraine to revoke their claims on this territory, and these states can determine their own future, which that future will likely be to join Russia eventually. So those are the official war goals of Russia, but based on the fact that Kherson is switching to the ruble, and occupied Zaporizhia is already talking, or the governor of that region, which was definitely not elected, he was put there by Russians. This guy's already talking about how they're going to try to join Russia. So it seems like Russia is definitely going to extend well beyond their war goals here. And an assault on Zaporizhia eventually is likely. I can't say when that's going to happen, but what it would kind of look like is probably attacks all across the front line to find a weak point. Once that weak point is found, there's probably going to be a big push up towards Pavlograd and Dnipro, where they could set up basically a new defensive line, and then they'll have like an inner siege line of Zaporizhia from this side, and then you have actually a higher concentration of Russian forces on this side, which could be there for two different reasons, or really three different reasons. One, to hold back the high concentration of Ukrainian troops that are on, that are opposite of them. Two, to make a push to Mykolaiv and Odessa, which is what they've publicly said several times. Let's get rid of this. Come on. Or those troops could be used to push up on Kryvyi Rih, and kind of seal the city off. That way they could push around the city, and create like a new line here, and then another inner siege line on Zaporizhia from the other side, which I have to say, like, the easier part of the city to capture is the left bank. It's far smaller. Zaporizhia is an important city, and this is actually some news that's in lately. It's not saying anything about 62 buildings is crazy. It's not saying anything about this in this post here, but there's a factory here. I believe the factory is actually owned by China, and it's an important military industrial complex factory, and it makes engines for Turkish drones. So, the Russians either want to capture it or destroy it, and it looks like they're opting towards destroying it now. But I just want to let you guys know that there is an increased amount of rhetoric around the capture of this city coming from the Russian side, and it does have very strategic a lot of strategic importance to the Russians. So, you might see something like this. You might see an assault towards Odessa instead. What happens here basically determines on, like, once we see these troops start moving the direction that they're going. If they head north, then the target is Zaporizhia. If they head to the west, then Zaporizhia probably has some time. So, but I imagine, based on some statements made by the Ukrainians, the Ukraine, or the governors of these regions, or the mayors, I guess, have ordered the construction of a new line, a new defensive line, and they want like a 4-layered line, I guess kind of similar to what they had in the Donbass, but it's not likely to be as powerful because they don't have the time that they had. But they basically want to defend Kharkov, defend Pavlograd, and defend Dnipro and Zaporizhia. And I made a video on this a couple weeks ago where I was predicting what might happen, but there's really, outside of this line here that's already occupied and where all the fighting is, this is the best, this is the only really defensive place where you can create a defensive line in this whole part of the country. And the next best place is over on this side, using the large cities from Kharkiv down to Zaporizhia, kind of as like logistics hubs. That way you can get supplies to like different places where troops are entrenched, but they don't have nearly the supplies that they had. They don't have the weapons that they had in the beginning. So this is across some of the flattest territory in the country, and it's questionable on whether this line will be able to hold or not. But I guess we'll see. So that's all I got for you guys today.